Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Hudak. Saints are wheels up today, out to L.A. Joint practices Thursday, Friday with the Chargers. They'll have a walkthrough Saturday and the preseason game on Sunday. Good opportunity to welcome aboard Maddy Hudak, get some reaction from the Chiefs game, look ahead to the Chargers game this coming weekend. Maddy, we appreciate it. How are you?
I'm good. It was actually an intriguing preseason film to watch, which I don't think I've ever said in my lifetime before.
Okay, why was it intriguing to watch?
Well, you had your starters out there for the first couple of series. I appreciate, that Kansas City also did the same thing because you were able to see what the starters on defense are really able to pull off. But I think all the things that media has been saying about the offense, just having some movement and some charisma to it, really displayed in those first couple of series. I mean, we haven't seen the Saints move the ball downfield like that, I don't think, in 2 seasons.
A lot of the scuttle, and honestly, Matt, I think Derek Carr even talked about this after the game. He did talk about this after the game, was about how impressive it was with that first O-line group in there. What did you see from them?
They really are just working with a lot more chemistry than you'd seen in prior years. Just looking at film in the past, when Ruiz was kind of coming on, you'd see the amount of times either Ramczyk or McCoy would have to kind of pay attention to what he was doing and perhaps miss something, but if you looked at every single guy on that line, they were all really handling their assignments really well. I think James Hurst has stepped into that left guard role really well, considering that he played primarily left tackle last season in place of Trevor Penning. And for Penning, he did have that one false start, but considering that this is really his first meaningful game time that we've seen from him since last year's preseason, the fact that they were able to get the run game going and that Derek Carr actually had a pocket to step up, and even if they were bringing more pressure from one side, I think he makes a big difference in his presence in the pocket as well. But you could just see more of a cohesive unit and one that wasn't as many, moving parts that we'd seen all training camp.
So if there was a contrast, it would have been the second O-line, right? I mean, Jameis Winston got sacked 3 times during his brief time in the game. So walk me through this, Maddy. When you look at the film, how much of a drop-off from that first unit to the second?
I'd say up the interior, it is a pretty strong drop-off. And again, that's just a huge credit to McCoy, Ruiz, and James Hurst because, just a couple seasons ago, everyone was really ragging on Cesar Ruiz, but he's really made a difference on that interior. And that's always kind of been the kryptonite of Saints quarterbacks, I think Derek Carr included. But it just seemed like those plays were really blowing up right at the start of them. There's not that much that Jameis Winston could have really done. The only thing I'd say is that there were a couple times where Derek Carr saw a little bit of pressure, and he was able to dump that ball off to Alvin Kamara really quickly. That was kind of a problem with Jameis Winston under center, is sometimes he's kind of waiting for those plays to develop, but he just did not have time to go through his reads with that O-line. So it does go to show you how quickly the drop-off from first to second O-lineman is and how much of a premier position those starters really are.
Maddy, and I think an extension of that also was how the running backs played. Kamara was very good, obviously, with the first unit, and subsequently those units struggled. We saw Kendre Miller get injured, which sort of magnified the day that Ellis Merriweather had. I said on Monday, Maddy, that I thought he played really well in all 3 phases, running, catching, blocking. Of course, caught the touchdown pass. What did you see? Is this a guy that could maybe be that next to the undrafted free agent running back gems that the Saints have found in the vein of guys like Chris Ivory and Pierre Thomas and Travaris Cadet? We all know the list. How did Merriweather look when you went back and watched it?
He looked impressive. He's one of the guys that now I'd kind of like to see him get earlier reps because if you look, he was primarily in third and fourth quarter with Jake Haener under center at quarterback. I honestly don't even know who the O-line was, but his physicality really stuck out to me because there was a point where the O-line just kind of fell down and he almost moved like the entire group of them forwards. So seeing that kind of lower body power, that's something that Mark Ingram and really Latavius Murray also brought under center that Alvin Kamara just shouldn't really be doing. So if he's able to do that, and you saw kind of flashes from Tony Jones Jr. in the past, but you didn't see him getting involved in a passing game to the level that you saw Ellis Merriweather. And he also did pick up several blitzes at times that I picked up on as well. So, again, it's one of those things that he looked really good in the fourth team offense. I'd like to see him kind of move up, especially when you point out that Kendre Miller injury. And it does magnify the fact that Alvin Kamara is going to be out those first 3 games. You need to shape up that depth chart. So to me, I don't need to see Alvin Kamara in the game anymore. I'm not even sure I need to see Jamal Williams. I kind of like to see them really go through those lower guys and see how Ellis Merriweather fares in those earlier series.
What did you think about Jamal Williams in his first outing with the Saints?
He just was a great pass protector. I know he had some plays that really stuck out to me because, I'm just over at Tulane, we're talking about replacing Tajay Spears, and something that I think is super underrated was how good of a pass protector he was back there. And you saw him pick up blitzes several times and occupy really big linebackers and give Derek Carr that extra moment to be able to make those plays. So that's something that really is going to come in handy back there, especially when they kind of bring out those fullback sets. And just in the past, it just seemed like the pressure crumbled these guys immediately, and the running backs back there had no ability to really pick up any slack. So the fact that the line was working well and there was, 1 or 2 assignments, but you could just tell that he was such a willing blocker. And, I know how much, what's his face over in Detroit, Dan Campbell really loved Jamal Williams, and those kind of guys that just love to get after this blocking game. So just seeing that willingness from him really was an impressive thing.
Hey, you better remember Dan Campbell's name, or he'll bite your kneecaps off. You better remember that guy. He'll come out here and he'll fight you and bite you. All right, let me ask a couple of defensive questions. Maddy Hudak's with us on Twitter at Maddy Hudak _94. The linebackers I think are really interesting, and we highlighted a couple of guys here. Ty Summers and let's see, who was the other one I'm thinking? Connolly was the other. Ryan Connolly, 42 and 43. There's my problem is I keep just looking at numbers, Maddy, but I saw Pro Football Focus graded Anthony Orji as the #1 defensive rookie in their Pro Football Focus grades in week 1 of the preseason. Did I just completely miss how well he played?
I'd just like to say I actually made a numerical roster on Excel earlier because I'm having the same type of issues. I did.
It's hard. You're
and
learning new players, new numbers, new jerseys. It is difficult. And then the guys change jersey numbers. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and actually, I was looking at Orji, and that's when Ryan Connolly stuck out to me. I'm like, oh, who is this guy kind of thing? But again, noticing that he didn't really come in until the third quarter, what I saw out of him was stuff that you really aren't seeing out of the Saints starting linebackers. There was one play where he was actually lined up on the line of scrimmage in press coverage against a tight end, and he not only really disrupted his route, but he carried him in phase about 20 yards downfield and took him out, and that was one of the plays that required a quarterback scramble. And it just looks like he is really good at finding the ball carrier, scraping through traffic, and really his ability in coverage. You could see that he knew when to hand off guys, when to cover guys in the flat. And I think Pete Werner brought so much in his rookie year in run defense, but Quan Alexander was really that coverage linebacker that they had. And I think they're still kind of trying to find that guy. So he stuck out to me the most in those coverage situations. Nefi Sewell or is it Penei Sewell? I get them confused. I believe it's Nefi.
It's Nefi, or I'd say Nefi, but Sewell. Penei Sewell is the offensive lineman with Detroit with what's his face, Dan Campbell, who will bite your kneecaps off.
Yes, exactly. He stuck out to me as well. I think when you're out there with Pete Werner, you could tell how much he stepped into that leadership role of Demario Davis and really giving those guys the assignments of where to go. It stuck out to me, too, that they were running a credible amount of 3 linebacker sets, and that's something we've seen them do a lot in training camp. But what I saw them doing with Zach Vaughn was actually kind of using him in that vision of rushing him off the line of scrimmage in the way he was intended. And really one of the only plays he gave up in coverage was he was actually lined up as a blitzer on that play and then had to drop back. So they're asking a lot out of these, newer guys. And if nothing else, Demario Davis being out and seeing the fact that Sewell could kind of hold his own, and then DeMarco Jackson also came in there. It's still a position group I'm really not ready to make any type of conclusions on, but I appreciated you having me go back and look at Orji because that coverage ability and really just the press coverage ability stuck out as well.
He was a guy I watched a bunch at Vanderbilt, Maddy. I mean, he was one of the top tacklers in the SEC, so a lot of people here were familiar with him. And I was excited when they signed him, but I feel like I just overlooked him this past weekend in that game against Kansas City. So let's look ahead then to this coming weekend. So the Saints are obviously they're traveling today, joint workouts with the Chargers Thursday, Friday. They'll play on Sunday. What are you looking for? What would you like to see Sunday against LA?
I mean, hypothetically, I'd like to see the starting offensive line. I don't know how long that's going to kind of continue, but like I said, I'd like to see guys like Pete Werner and Alvin Kamara out. Only because I think that the leadership of Pete Werner and his ability to direct that traffic. I'd like to see if someone else can step up to the plate, because Pete Werner has been the one that's missed more time over the last few seasons. Demario Davis hasn't missed a single game, I don't think. Maybe that COVID one. But, you kind of run more of a risk with him. That linebacker room suddenly becomes super thin. And again, on the running back side, guys like Merriweather, I'd like to see him actually try to kind of have a chance with a better O-line and earlier on in the game. And then I'd like to see the punter, Lou Hedley, a little more, because I don't think that we've really seen enough consistency out of Blake Gillikin to be able to kind of say that, but we haven't seen Lou Hedley in really any meaningful time either. And Blake Grupe, what a way to really enter the NFL with that, time expiring situational type stuff. So I'm curious about those special teams guys as well, but I think Jake Haener getting a little more playing time as well, because, I think we all kind of hyped him up. Unfortunately, throwing a pick in your first NFL start is not optimal, but I liked the way that he responded in his 2-minute drill. And so seeing if he really has that ability to be that third quarterback, or if you have to start looking at Taysom Hill and perhaps kind of putting him back more in that room and seeing how they use him a little more. I was surprised that they primarily relied on him as a pass-catching tight end, but I think we're all just kind of waiting for him to enter that running back room, especially now with Kendre Miller being out.
Interesting. Maddy, I'd like to congratulate you as well. 13 years of AFR. That is the first Lou Hedley reference ever. And I think also the first time anyone has ever said they're excited to watch the backup punter in a preseason game. So you have reached absolutely degenerate football levels when you are looking for the backup punter in a preseason game. But such is life. So a hat tip to you for exploring new horizons here on AFR, Maddy.
Listen, this year it's special teams wins championships, I guess, is my go.
She is Maddy Hudak. Give her a follow on Twitter. All right, we appreciate it, Maddy. Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.